What's up, everybody? Welcome back into another episode of The Lawyer You Know. And we're giving our Diddy Week 1 trial update. Today, we're going to talk about opening statements, some of the information we found out during opening statements that's going to give us an idea of trial strategy for the prosecutors and the defense team. What is the defense going to pick apart? What is their theory going to be? How are they going to defend some of the actions we know are going to come out in this trial? Then we're going to talk about some of the witnesses, especially Cassie Ventura, who is, one of the star witnesses for the government. She was on the stand for quite a while, and some of the other minor witnesses that have come out and talked about what they've seen, what they experienced, what Diddy did and said to them. Will the government be able to prove these specific charges they've levied against P. Diddy, or will they just prove a lot of bad behavior that's immoral and a lot of us may think is wrong, but is it criminal? I'm going to answer a lot of the questions that you guys have sent in over social media. Don't stop doing that. Make sure you hit the like button if you're following this trial. Let's get into it. When the federal government brings charges, they usually win. High 90 percentile of conviction rate, lots of plea deals. We know Diddy rejected a plea deal. So this trial started, and it started about as you would expect for a racketeering RICO type trial where the government takes the stance, as they do many times in these kinds of trials, where they mention all sorts of shocking wrongdoing. Of course, they talk about the fact that it's a criminal enterprise, which they have to prove, that facilitated these freak offs. And they describe the freak offs in enough details to intrigue the jury, to shock the jury, to make the jury pretty disgusted, probably, if you're most normal human beings and you don't have this celebrity lifestyle that is not available to many people. And usually, when it gets to this level, if it's true what they are alleging, they get bored with normal life and they have to keep raising the stakes and raising the stakes. They're also going to talk about firearms and weapons and drugs and blackmail and demands and abuse, whether it's physical or psychological, controlling behavior. They're going to talk about many victims, how this organization is set up, what the purpose of the organization is, and the fact that P. Diddy is the head of this snake, the head of this organization, and that is why he is on trial. It's not just RICO, but it's also trafficking and prostitution and all sorts of other charges. I think 5 charges in total that they are bringing against Puff Daddy. And that's important because when we look at some of the defense's theories and what they're planning to do to try to fight against these charges and allegations of the government, they have to admit some wrongdoing. They have to admit things are going to look bad. Maybe even some crimes were committed, but not the crime of racketeering, not RICO, not when the prosecutors just want to say whatever they want to say. It doesn't make it the crime that they actually charged. So that's why I think some of the trafficking, prostitution, those types of charges may become important if the defense can muddy the water enough on RICO. So how does the defense argue against this? And what they did in opening statements is, again, a kind of a typical opening statement where they take more of a technical approach. What are these actual charges? Do these facts fit those charges? Do these facts prove that a crime was committed? You have to, again, own some mistakes, own some wrongdoing, own some things that maybe your client did that a lot of the jurors would never do, would never think about doing, would never want their kids to do, would never want their kids to be wrapped up in. Admit maybe even there's some domestic violence, some physical abuse, but that's not what the charge is. It's wrong. There are bad relationships. There's infidelity. There's even some deviance, sexual deviance that, again, might shock you, but it's not this crime. They want to twist romantic relationships into racketeering. And then I believe some people put the quote out there that physical abuse and love of baby oil are not federal crimes. And woof, if you have to say that in an opening statement. But many times defense attorneys do, because they're trying to get the jury to understand, even with some extreme examples, that this can be horrible. This can be wrong. You can look at the guy in the chair over there and think he's a horrible, disgusting human being. But is the government proving the charges against it? And I think those are the most successful stances to take as a defense attorney in this situation, especially with the publicity, right? They picked the jury. It's federal court, so maybe they didn't get to dig in as much as they would in state court. But it seems like this judge let them do more than I've been allowed to do in some federal criminal trials. But when it comes to discussing these types of things with the jury, you have to understand that the jury probably has heard or knows somebody who has some sort of feeling about P. Diddy. Let me know what you think about P. Diddy in the chat, just as an example. Have you heard anything about this? Have you heard about these charges? What was your initial reaction when you first heard about him, when he was first arrested? Because I think there's going to be some overwhelmingly negative comments. I also think there'll be some positive comments that think they just want to keep him down. They don't like him because he's successful. They're jealous, whatever it may be. That may exist as well. And if you're the defense, maybe you play into that. If you have one juror on this jury that is in that group, you make sure they stay with you and you don't lose them. Because hung juries in federal cases, I would guess, I don't know this research for sure, I would guess that percentage is even smaller than in state court cases. But I also think that the chances of retrial are probably less in federal court as it goes from one hung jury to the next and a mistrial. They'll probably, I don't know if they'll drop the charges, but maybe they'll come up with some sweetheart deal, house arrest, or he can just go home and he has to, admit to one felony or something like that. Those are where deals could potentially be made. By the way, it's very early in the morning. That's why my voice sounds like it hasn't woken up yet, because in fact, it hasn't. All right, we're going to talk about a couple of the witnesses. And we're going to start with Cassie. Cassie Ventura, fine. Most people know who that is. Most people saw the video, heard about her lawsuit. We talked about it here. Some people think that is what triggered this. My guess is the feds were investigating before that, but that was a very big part in it. Seems like she is the star witness in the case. And she is also very pregnant. So she takes the stand. Her husband is in the courtroom. The defense actually tried to argue to get him out of the courtroom, saying they might call him as a witness. There were some arguments. It seemed like they came to some sort of agreement that if the government limited certain questions, that he could stay in the courtroom. Again, it's not being live streamed. I'm not able to see and hear every single argument, which is frustrating, makes it more difficult. But you guys have sent some trusted sources. I have looked around for some trusted sources, some bigger outlets, some smaller outlets, people that have said they are in the courtroom, to try to get the most accurate information I can. It is not going to be the same as if we're watching the trial ourselves. And if that makes you not want to watch coverage of it, let me know and we can move on to something else. It seems like you guys have still wanted at least some kind of update. There hasn't been a ton of questions, but there has been a few. And most of the questions center around, how can the defense even argue against it? What is going to be their strategy? What does a defense lawyer do in this situation? And so that's what we focus on, talking about opening statements. And that's what we'll focus on when we talk about cross-examination as well. So again, star witness, female who's pregnant. Usually defense attorneys will think of the best lawyer to go, I don't want to say up against, but to cross-examine a witness like that takes a lot of forethought, a lot of planning, probably some practice. Like, that's a little too harsh. That's not, you want to push here. Don't go too soft. That is the person accusing our client of horrible wrongdoing. That is the star witness. We have to attack their credibility. We have to, go after the things they say if we don't believe that they are true, if we think they're exaggerating, or if we think they've had a change of heart now later in life, but at the time when they were an adult, it was consensual. Those are the kinds of things you have to focus on in this type of trial. So she, a lot of things she said were not surprising. We kind of knew they were going to be coming. She explains some of the horrifying facts that we already know, the abuse, the control at such a young age for her. She was an adult though, how she felt, what she went through. There were some facts I didn't know. Like, I didn't know she signed a 10 record deal and I think only released one. She recorded multiple other ones that he wouldn't release. Again, exercising that control. The freak offs were like her job. They lasted so long. Some lasted up to 4 days, which is mind-boggling. And again, when the jury is getting the details of what they did during the freak offs, the drinking, the drugs, the abuse, the multiple partners, how long, the videotaping, to think that they lasted 4 days. And then she would say, sometimes they took so long to perform, and then in the freak offs, and then she had to recover. So she really couldn't even do anything else, music related, movie related, whatever it may be. They also did play the video that a lot of us saw publicly. She explained the lead up to that video. She was trying to escape a violent freak off, what P. Diddy did. Again, that video corroborates her statements that he controlled it. He forced it. She didn't want to do it, right? Regardless of what they say about, well, you still, I just want to make sure the mic was still on. You still loved him, wanted to be with him, cared about him. And she's like, yes, I did care about him. I wanted to impress him. I loved him. I was jealous when he would be with other people. So she admitted a lot of that as well. Will the jury find her more credible because she was willing to admit that? Or will they say that makes her less credible because now she's just angry at Puff Daddy? That is going to be a common theme as well through cross-examination, not just Cassie Ventura, but everybody. Are you jealous of P. Diddy? Do you hate P. Diddy? Does he owe you something? Do you feel like he didn't do enough for your career? Didn't pay you enough money? Turned his back on you? Did it feel bad when a big bad celebrity you thought you were friends with, you actually weren't? Was he using you to make money in his industry? Was he using you for physical pleasure? Which again, may be horrible, maybe immoral, but is it this federal crime? She was saying the violent freak off was also with escorts. That was a big thing. Either like strippers or escorts would be involved, and that's big with the trafficking and other charges that Diddy is being charged with here. She explained how all of this control and abuse was also psychological. Like she did explain the physical, the bruises, the beating, the black eyes, broken bones. I don't know if she said broken bones, but she explained the physical abuse. But a lot of it was on the psychological side. And I think that's really important when, by the way, the prosecutors are not going to be surprised by a lot of the defense tactics on cross that why did you stay around? Why did you keep doing it? You were an adult. You had a choice. You still loved him. We have these text messages or emails or letters showing and proving. We're going to have witnesses that show you loved him. You wanted it. You know, you wanted him more than he wanted you. He was interested in other people and not being monogamous. And they know that. So her explanation of the psychological part of this and the control and what he did to her and how he used all of this as power and also blackmail, because he had videos of her and escorts and strippers and, you know, all these other people that she obviously wouldn't want to get out at the time when she was young in her 20s, you know, trying to make her music career work. And that was all really important. And that to me sometimes can be more important than even the physical abuse, because whether it's, you know, gets rough or kinky or whatever, and some people like it, some people don't. Or even when the defense is going to try to say, yeah, there's some domestic violence here, there's some physical abuse here, but it is not the crime charged. That's how you have to show the whole picture if you're the prosecution. And you have to show why he did it, how he did it physically and mentally. He did it for the organization and the purpose of the freak offs, which they're going to have to explain, like, what was the purpose? Why did he do it? Why is this a criminal organization? Why is this racketeering? And to me, that's always the difficult part of this. If you want to fine tune it, and if a jury's going to be technical and read every word of these charges as they should, the government has to be very specific in proving how this is an organization that's criminal with a criminal purpose and all these underlying criminal acts that help it fulfill its criminal purpose. And that can be the difficult part sometimes. But as the government always does, the generally bad guy rule. If you can make the jury hate P. Diddy enough, if you can make him look like a menace to society, do not let that guy go back out there and do this to other people. And we're going to slap this crime on and throw it up against the wall and hope you think it fits. Sometimes there is that feeling in federal racketeering cases like this. That's not the mob or, you know, something that's more historically a RICO type of case with that type of criminal organization. The same types of things were said during the R. Kelly trial, right? They piled on, made him look, you know, like not something I'd ever want to be a part of. But a lot of people were saying, does the crime actually fit these facts? And that's for the jury to determine, but that's for the government to prove to the jury. And if the defense does not think they fit, it is up to the defense to make sure to highlight that and make the jury understand why legally and factually this does not fit together. So they get a lot of details, you'll notice as well, from a lot of the reports from Cassie. And while those can be very important for the prosecution, they can also be very important to the defense, especially when they call other witnesses. I think we've already heard from, you know, escorts and strippers and hotel lobby guards and people like that, right? And when it's going to be guards and people that are just eyewitnesses and they saw Cassie, escorts, strippers, P. Diddy, going up and down to what the people in the room are testifying are freak offs, Can they corroborate that? When did it happen? How did it happen? Were you paid? Was there video? Did you get copies of the video? Why did you get copies of the video? Did P. Diddy ever instruct you to do X, Y, and Z? So a lot of those eyewitnesses and the people protecting P. Diddy, or a lot of times those people can be involved as part of the criminal organization that P. Diddy is the head of. And were they helping him carry out this criminal purpose for the criminal organization? So those are going to be a lot of questions that they're going to have to fill the holes for the government. But to the escorts and people inside the room, they are also going to testify to the freak-offs. And that's where the details can be very important. And we've already seen the defense impeach on details between witnesses. Who was directing the show? Was it P. Diddy? Was it Cassie? Was it you? Who was doing what they wanted to do? Did everybody know it was being recorded? Cassie said that she was, either high or drunk, being forced to do this stuff to numb the pain. There's no way she could have done this without P. Diddy giving her and forcing these drugs on her. She did take them, but she felt like she had to. And that's how she was basically every freak off. But then you have some witnesses that say she didn't seem high or she didn't seem drunk. And will other witnesses corroborate Cassie or this person who seem like they're on the same side, but when the details are different, does it matter? Like, you may think, I don't care. That detail is not important to me. But the defense, as in every case, is going to point out every inconsistency, because you can get reasonable doubt from the evidence, the lack of evidence, or the inconsistency or conflicts in the evidence. Additionally, we've already seen some inconsistent prior statements from some of the witnesses. I think P. Diddy was directing the freak off, or was Cassie directing the freak off? And obviously, if Cassie is, that adds a different element because she's one of the victims. So if she was in control, how does that work in your organization? Was she part of it and now she's not? How is the government going to deal with that? Or are they just going to say that's a lie? Obviously, P. Diddy was doing it. And that's why we discussed the psychological control and element of what was going on, because he was already brainwashing her, controlling her mentally. So whatever she was doing in there was at the direction of P. Diddy. And so that's going to be a big question as well. A lot of these witnesses are also going to discuss how they were paid to perform. And I think one witness said between $700 and $6,000 per freak off, which maybe seems like a lot of money. $700 doesn't seem like a lot of money from P. Diddy, right? But he also would talk about how if he wasn't able to physically perform, and I'll let your imagination run there, that he wasn't paid. So he had to actually perform the acts that are in question here that the government is saying is part of this RICO, or else he wasn't paid. So it's not just like, I don't know what else it would be, right? And it also fits into the other crimes as well. So the government is painting a very clear picture of this sexual deviance that P. Diddy paid for, that he wanted, that he forced. There were drugs involved, alcohol involved, a lot of different people involved, trafficking involved from different places. And to me, it's a pretty good start for the government. Pretty good start for the government. Now, the defense has their theme and they're going to work it all the way through. Oh, there was also firearms and Suge Knight situations. And what did P. Diddy do? And Cassie told him to not do anything dumb, and then he left, but she didn't see what he did when she left. Somebody handed her a firearm to keep in her purse. She doesn't know, I don't think it was P. Diddy. I wasn't perfectly clear on exactly that and how that's going to work in. I assume there's going to be more witnesses in the future that's going to give more detail on that. To me, I think that it's an uphill battle for the defense. Anytime you have this much evidence of this type of deviant behavior that I think most of the jury is going to look down upon, think is horrible, think is bad, think people should not be doing this in society. You see these victims who are very young, even though they're adults, but still very young, impressionable. P. Diddy is significantly older, an adult with a lot more life experience. Like she was saying, there were a lot of things he taught her and brought her into adulthood. And I think that matters. And they see how it's affected these people's lives. I'm sure the defense will very strategically and carefully say, you're married with multiple children and you're pregnant again, to say like, so did it really mess you up that much, is what they might infer, which I think could be a misstep or a mistake. But sometimes defense teams try to do that. I haven't seen reports of that. I've heard that type of argument before in cases. So it's going to be a battle, right? Like, how horrible really was this? Or is this a person that just is different from you or I, that has different desires? And do we really want to go into people's bedrooms? Do we want the government in the people's bedrooms? Will they ask questions like that? Will they try to make the jury think things like that for any jurors that would agree with them? And maybe these jurors have some alternative lifestyle to what the norm is or what has historically been the norm. And you want to play on that because the lawyers will know what the juries have been through, what their background is like. I didn't see a ton about jury selection. I'm assuming they did a lot about domestic abuse and violence and things like that. I don't know if they did a lot of like celebrity behavior or anything. I don't really know. It is New York, which New York and LA, you would think most celebrities or wealthy people, a lot of money in those cities. So I don't know. I don't know how much that is going to come into the play. I don't know the socioeconomic status or demographics of this jury. Oh, the videos of the free calls. We've heard about them. We know they exist. It sounds like they are going to be evidence in this case. And both sides have some apprehension about personal safety and security and privacy of the people involved and in these videos. Obviously, it will be embarrassing, and people are going to speculate, especially if the public's there. Is this a certain celebrity? Is that a certain celebrity? Will they blur out any portion of it? I don't know. I understand why it's important to show it to the jury. So the jury is not just hearing people's explanation of it. They can see it for themselves. Does it corroborate consensual? Does it corroborate just deviance or something that is something you just may not agree with, but it's not criminal? Or is it obviously criminal? Is it obviously being forced? Is it obviously this abuse and control? Who is in charge? If everybody's making a big deal of who's directing what, can you tell from these videos? So I understand completely why the jury needs to see it. It's just like autopsy photos, bodies, even of children in other criminal cases. And I understand how horrible and difficult it's going to be. And these jurors will be provided the opportunity to talk to somebody throughout the process and afterwards. I hope they take it if they need it. But there's been discussion of who's going to be allowed in the room. Will journalists, will reporters be allowed in the room? There's already no cameras. How much do we want to shut this off? And big time First Amendment guy, constitutional rights guy. This is one I can understand if the judge wants to limit it at least partially. Or maybe let the journalists hear what's on the video, but not necessarily see something like that. If there is a way to protect the people in the video, especially victims, if they were really forced to do this and you're going to just show the world, not really the world, but journalists who then will go report on it. And journalists have argued, we're not going to do anything salacious. We're not going to make this, we're not going to glamorize this. It's like, okay, you might not, but will people on the internet run with it? I would probably guess yes. When there are celebrities involved and it's this type of content that is salacious, that is something people have been talking about so much, I understand the balancing the judge has to do. So we'll see what the judge ends up determining and what he decides. I always err on openness, public, let people in the country see what's going on, let them fully understand it. And there is an element to the community and the public, how we see this and talk about it. Oh, it's not really that bad, or oh, it's just an orgy, or oh, whatever, it's just baby oil, or whatever. But then if we actually saw it, would we be like, oh wow, this is bad. This is worse than we thought. Or will some people be like, it's not as bad as I thought? I don't know. But that's kind of the balancing act of like, the public has a right to know what's going on in their community. Is he really a danger to society? And if he goes back out, what do we need to do to protect ourselves, right? Another thing where some of these witnesses, the defense has said, well, you wrote a text message that said you still love him, or you still love them together, Cassie and Diddy, or you still continue to work for him or continue to show up for the free calls. If the abuse was that bad, why did you continue to do X, Y, and Z? And I think the easy answer for a lot of these victims is going to be, I was either scared of his power, money, control. He controlled my career. He controlled my life. He controlled my livelihood. This is how I made money. I was addicted to what he had done to me and had brainwashed me, basically forced me into. Or I loved him. I wanted his admiration. I was brainwashed. I was stuck in the cult or the organization, whatever you want to call it. I was stuck in it. Once I didn't see it until I got out and had people who saved my life tell me that's not normal. That's not love. That's not a job. That's not what you should be doing. And I would expect similar answers like that. That light flickering in the background is kind of crazy. But yeah, so that's basically week one so far. This is Wednesday when I'm recording this because there was no Karen Reed court yesterday. We'll see if there's court today. So I had some time to catch up on what's going on in the Diddy trial, which worked out nicely. Some of you guys asked me in the live about it yesterday, so I figured I'd look into it. And that's where we're at so far. Those are my thoughts. I think the government has the upper hand. I think they're going to have the upper hand the whole time, even though presumption of innocence, P. Diddy is innocent right now. You should vote not guilty if it was to end right now. But the way it's tracking already very early on, and I think a 2-month trial, we're only 2 days in basically, or 3 days in, the government seems to have a lot to throw at the jury that I think is going to be pretty overwhelming by the end. That's my thought right now. But I think he's got a really good defense team that's going to highlight the issues. So we're going to reserve judgment. We're not going to, come to a conclusion yet. That's just kind of my analysis from everything that I'm reading and unfortunately not seeing. Let me know who you think the trusted sources are. Please let me know what questions you have about the trial, the reports you're seeing, the arguments you're seeing made by the lawyers, the strategy. If you have those types of questions, please put them in the comments so that I know what you want to hear in the future and future updates here. Make sure you also hit that like button and watch this and subscribe to it so that I know that people in the channel want to hear this content, because I know Karen Reed is kind of dominating a lot of the true crime airways. But just let me know because I'm here to try to provide the people what they want. So you got to let me know what the people want. I appreciate you guys. Till next time, I'm out of here. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And don't forget to check out the Lawyer You Know podcast with new seasons dropping every quarter. If you have a pase you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, The Lawyer You Know.